Today's guest is Dr. Desiree Yazdan, a general and cosmetic dentist, being able to blend science, artistry, and patient-first care, which I really believe in the dental business is important. Dr. Yazdan earned her DDS and a master's in craniofacial biology from USC, where she also conducted research on enamel development. That combination really does give her a unique edge, creating natural, beautiful smiles while staying grounded in long-term oral health and prevention. Hey everybody, welcome back to the No BS Dental Growth Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Chris Pistorius, and today's guest is Dr. Desiree Yazdan, a general and cosmetic dentist based in beautiful Newport Beach, California. Dr. Yazdan is known for being able to blend science, artistry, and patient-first care, which I really believe in the dental business is important. Dr. Yazdan earned her DDS and a master's in craniofacial biology from USC, where she also conducted research on enamel development. That combination really does give her a unique edge, creating natural, beautiful smiles while staying grounded in long-term oral health and prevention. Dr. Yazdan is also the founder of Center for Restorative and Cosmetic Dentistry, where the focus is on doing things the right way: prevention first, thoughtful treatment planning, and predictable results. She's also trained in implant dentistry and uses advanced technology to drive better outcomes. And outside the office, this is a first for me. She's a concert pianist, fitness enthusiast, mentor, and a proud dog mom. I don't know how you have time to sleep, but I can't wait to get into this. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
You do sleep, right? You have time to do all of this and still sleep.
I sleep pretty late, actually. I don't get that much sleep, but I've always been someone who doesn't need too much sleep. But lately, I don't know, I turned 40 last year, and I feel like ever since I turned 40, I require a little bit more sleep. So,
Yeah, wait till you hit 50. I just did.
well, half a century. Yeah, so I feel like as I get a little bit older, I'm like, I used to love to be up really late, and I still kind of do, but now if I can be in bed by like 7:30, even if I don't sleep, I'm so happy. So things have shifted just a little.
It's funny how that works. But anyway, well, let's get to it. I'm going to jump right into the heart of this, because we have an audience that is wanting to learn more about you and how you've grown your practice, and what you're doing on social media is amazing, and the followers that you have. I have so many clients and just followers that ask me, how can they get more into social media? How can they get more new patients, do that kind of stuff? But first, let's start with, what's the biggest shift that you've made in your practice in recent history, I guess, that both drove patient satisfaction and profitability?
That's a good question. I would say in the beginning of my career, it was a lot about like, we have to produce, we need to get the patients in, almost like a survival mode mentality. And when you end up building the business and you end up having like a little bit of a financial cushion with that, like you start to think of it differently. Like, what if I never made any more money than I'm making right now? Like, what would that look like? And what do I actually enjoy? And so I think this happened once I became a mom, because my time became all of a sudden so much more valuable to me. And so I've really made the shift of like, how can we wow all of our patients? And that in return, and that really is like when I go into trainings, when we have meetings, like I always talk about the patients and the patient experience rather than, we also talk about the numbers, but it's more like, hey, we really want to cater to our patients and give them a good experience. And we have the ability to do like the best dental work here, and we have a great team. And how could you make it better? And how could you make it better? And I think in turn, patients can see that and feel that. And then that ends up like increasing case acceptance in a lot of ways, and it ends up getting more patients into the practice. And so I think that's one of the shifts that we've made that has really been helpful.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It's kind of, I think what you hit on there, and I think any business owner, like even myself, when I first started 16 years ago now, there is a little bit of that survival in the beginning, right? Like, man, I've got to pay the bills here. And I did it when I had, when I started this, I had two little kids at the time and I left a pretty good job. And my wife's like, what are we doing here? So there is that kind of survival instinct. And
Yeah.
I know for me anyway, that instinct has kind of stuck with me. And I think that helps drive you and, get things going for sure. So I'm glad you brought that up. Um, how do you balance being a clinician first dentist with demands of also running the business?
So I have built really good systems in my practice and I delegate. And I actually spend a lot of time training my team rather than doing all the things. Most dentists, especially like we're small business owners, right? So we're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just answer this email. I'll just make sure the lab case gets sent out properly. I'll make sure that I send out all the and I'm like, okay, I am really good at doing the dentistry and I'm really good at taking care of patients, and that is my zone of genius, and that's actually what makes, the patient experience better and makes the practice more profitable. So I have to spend my time there. So how am I going to spend more of my time there rather than doing all these other things? And so I delegate to team members, but I do spend, a lot of time training them and doing assessments and making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing and that they're efficient. And that's a better use of my time rather than me doing everything myself.
Yes, absolutely. That's as soon as you said that, I'm like, yes, absolutely. Got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a book out there called E-Myth Revisited. I don't know if you've read it or not, but it talked about how to, work more in your business versus on your business. No, I'm sorry. I got that backwards. First, working on your business versus in your business. Obviously, if you're a dentist and you're practicing, you can't take every grain of salt in that book, but it talks to you about, really how to build processes, procedures, how to delegate things like that. And so I think what you just hit on is absolutely exact. So I think that's great. What are some common misconceptions dentists have about cosmetic dentistry, would you say?
Um, yeah, they think, oh, if I could just get a lot of cases, I'll make so much more money than doing these fillings and all of these things. But I think the misconception is they don't understand the pickiness of the patients that are coming to you for cosmetic work. Because while, yes, you might take somebody who's missing teeth and has neglected their teeth for a long time and get them to a place where they're beautiful, you also get people who have really nice teeth and they want to change the shape, the size, the color of their teeth, and they don't have bad teeth. And so those patients, it's like, how do you make good teeth and make them great and also please the patient? And it's you just learn. You'll never be 100% perfect at it. Not every case is a home run, but you get to a point where you build these systems that most of them are, but it takes time to get there.
So how would you say that you ensure that aesthetic type improvements in dentistry don't compromise long-term oral health? Is there a balance there at all that you see or no?
Well, yeah. So I actually think that when you do cosmetic treatment, patients, because they're investing in themselves, they end up taking better care of their smile. But I think the education piece is really important of like what they should be doing, how to care for their teeth. Believe it or not, I mean, I'm sure you know this, but like a lot of patients don't know how to actually take care of their teeth. They use the wrong floss, they use the wrong toothpaste, they use the wrong toothbrush, they see fancy things on social media that everybody like swears by and they're like, "Oh, this person uses this." And it's like, "No, don't use that. That's terrible." I
Yeah.
think just educating them and especially on their mouth and what's going on with them is really important.
Yeah. Dentists are always famed for, tools and they love to buy shiny things
Yeah.
sometimes, especially cosmetic. But what technology has had the biggest impact on your practice and why?
That's an interesting question. Um, I would say two things. One is switching over to a cloud-based
Yeah.
practice management system. I think dentists are stuck in like the dinosaur ages when it comes to technology. And there are things out there that can help you run your practice. I mean, I used to have to like use this remote desktop thing to like log in. And if my computer was turned off at work, like I couldn't see the schedule, I couldn't pull information. And as like a working mom, if I needed to speak to a specialist about something and I couldn't pull in up the info, it was so frustrating. And now I can literally run my practice on an iPad. And it makes it so much easier for patients because I'm not clicking a million buttons to like treatment plan one thing. I'm just clicking a button and it's great. Um, and I would say that. And I would say a scanner. I held off a long time before I got a scanner because my ceramists are still like, I don't want you to scan your preps. I want you to take impressions. So there was kind of no point for me to have a scanner, but I ended up loving a newer one that came out. And I purchased it. I think it was like 2 years ago, actually. And I love it because patients can see what we see, and I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. It's just not always, the cheapest investment, but I think anything that you can use to kind of better explain procedures and why people need things, and it kind of lays it out there and makes sense, I think can always be, a really big factor in dentistry, and especially, case acceptance. If they can visually see a problem,
Yeah,
like, oh man, I need to
absolutely.
take care of
I
it.
mean, you could do the same thing with intraoral photos, and I did that for
Mm,
years. But I think just showing the scanner, it shows like the wear on the teeth. It just shows more that is hard to explain to patients until they can actually physically see it themselves. And if you just explain it properly. So I think the scanner has been really helpful for that.
yeah. What's your approach with dental or patient anxiety and communication to kind of improve treatment acceptance?
So whenever patients are really anxious, they end up like just being like, well, you've come to the right place. We're going to take great care of you. And there's different levels of anxiety. So there in anxiety for dentistry is a learned behavior, so you can unlearn it. So sometimes I explain that to patients, and we start small. Like we don't do anything that first appointment that would feel scary to them. So we start really small, just a lot of education, and then we also have. I have patients that can't even get a cleaning unless they're sedated. So we have like a medical anesthesiologist, we offer nitrous, we offer oral sedatives, and also just slow moving treatment. And we kind of gauge where people are at, and then just, make a treatment plan that's going to work for them.
Yeah, makes sense. Anxiety definitely interferes with acceptance, though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. So in terms of case acceptance, um, you know, I always get really curious about why if a patient is like sitting in the chair, they're nodding along with you, they're anxious and they're like, yeah, I get it. I know I need that and blah, blah, blah. And then they end up not booking. It's really an opportunity for you to find out why. Right. And sometimes they're like, oh, like, let me check with my spouse or it's really expensive. Well, if it's expensive, there's payment options, right? Make it super affordable these days. And they know they need the work, they understand. So there's usually something lying under there, which is the anxiety, right? So if instead of a lot of dentists, I think, feel really pushy if they keep asking questions and they keep talking about the treatment. But I always come from a place of curiosity of like, why is this patient not wanting to book? And so when I am getting that sense from them, like they don't want to book, they're really hesitant, I get really curious. I'll be like, I'm just curious, like, why are you hesitating to book the treatment? You seem like you understand it and that you need it. And then the real reason comes out, oh, I'm really afraid of this. I'm afraid it's going to hurt, or I'm afraid it's not going to work, or whatever it is. And then now we have the opportunity to have an actual conversation about what they're afraid of and kind of like coach them on that, rather than, just being like, I don't want to be too pushy, so I'm just going to let them slide. My mentality in that is if a patient is sitting in my chair, they want treatment and they know that they probably need treatment. And so, like, my job is to help them get that treatment. And so I'll go to bat for them. And if maybe they don't fully understand it, right? That's sometimes part of it. Like their brain shuts off. They don't fully understand it. So I explain the same thing in a different way. So, those are just kind of some of the things that really help with the case acceptance of anxious
Yeah.
patients.
That's great advice. I think that's a real weak spot for a lot of practices of, the acceptance part of it. So I think that's a great way to look at it and to identify the true objection of why somebody's not getting the treatment versus just kind of skimming over and saying, okay, well, thanks. So I think that's a great
Yeah.
strategy for you. Now, I want to get to social media and personal brand stuff. You've built a
Yeah.
very strong online presence. What advice would you give to dentists trying to grow their brand in a similar way?
Yeah. So my advice would be know who your target audience is. And I always narrow it down to one patient. So I know we think as dentists, like, well, I can help anybody, everybody who has teeth or doesn't have teeth, I can help them. But really, you and your business are meant to serve a specific type of patient. And so you have to know who that person is. And then you have to consistently create content to reach that person. And I think where people get in trouble is they think, okay, I'm going to do this for like 2 months. And then they do it for 2 months. So like, well, I only have like 3 people liking my post and I'm not getting any traction. I've tried everything. And so they stop and they give up. And then they get inspired again 6 months later and they go on this roll of like posting. And then the same thing happens. And my theory is it's kind of like a value bank. So, for example, when you're putting money into a bank, right? Let's say a CD or any kind of like investment situation, the amount of money that you're putting in is not necessarily like you're not going to be able to live off the interest of that money for a long time, right? Until that interest is compounded so much where then you can actually use those funds to live off of it. And so the social media is the same way. You have to build this compound effect by consistently putting out value and eventually it will sprout like a tree, like as if you were planting a seed, right? It's like it will sprout like a tree and it will, give you all the fruits that you need. But it takes
Yeah.
you being consistent and not worrying about the vanity metrics of it. And I also have this theory that the lurkers are always buying. So the lurkers to me are the people who are watching what you post. They're screenshotting all your stuff. They're not liking anything. They don't even follow you. They're not even engaging with you, but they're constantly looking at what you're doing. And the reason I have this is because I've had, you know, hundreds, thousands of patients sit in my chair who are pulling up tons of photos that they screenshot on their phone and they're pulling up their Instagram. They're not following me. They haven't liked anything. And it's like you would never know in their world that I exist at all, but they have like a whole album dedicated to teeth that they like. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like this person hasn't liked one photo of mine. They're not even following me, but they are here in my chair. And so if you could remember that, then it helps you show up.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such a good point. The lurkers are out there for sure. How long did it take you to start building your brand, or you're like, oh wow, this is actually working?
It's taken me 1 year of posting every day.
Nice, nice. That's
I don't think it would take that long now. I think just when I started, I feel like I was one of the first like dentists to really promote my business online because when I started using Instagram, nobody was using it to promote their business and I started to. And so I didn't understand like how to market it like in a way that was resonating with people. And I think just getting into that realm of like understanding what to do and then posting every single day like really taught me what worked. And then when patients would come in after that year mark, I'd be like, oh, what brought you in here? Can I ask you like what triggered you to actually come in? And I would ask them. And I started to learn. But I think the learning curve is less now for people because there are so many people out there who have grown brands on social media. There's so many. I mean, I used to sell a course on this and I don't send it anymore because I just can't keep up with all the
yeah.
I can't keep up with all the platforms that like how fast they change. But there are people that have courses on this stuff. And so your learning curve is less than when I first started.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you should start your own just for dentists. That would be amazing.
Uh,
Um,
I had it.
yeah, you should. I mean, in your spare time with all the other things that you have going on, that's crazy. But yeah, you're definitely an expert in it. So what? I guess the social media thing's such a big mountain to climb for so many people, and it really shouldn't be. Just start off small, But what's one content strategy that's consistently worked for you? Like, what type of content do you find that really um, it hits the hardest?
So I really think like people don't understand that there's a barrier between you and the person looking at your content. And so they have to get to know, like, and trust you. And you have, they're not engaging with you actually. And so the more like the way that you put out your content, the longer form content that you have, even if it's the caption, it's a photo, but the caption is long, like people will start to get to know you just by the way that you're writing things out. Or if you have a longer video, like it's going to get less views, it's going to get less engagement. But I think those are the things that really resonate with people are when you're explaining something that they don't know. And then they're like, oh, like the fact that she knows this and now I can see it in this picture or video or whatever, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I want to go to this person. It kind of sets you up as an authority.
Yeah.
And, as dentists, we have a lot of knowledge that other people don't. And you should capitalize on that and explain things. And it could be anything. It could be an implant. It could be, hydroxyapatite. It could be fluoride. It could be veneers, like whatever you want to be doing in your practice. You just have to talk about it and, just become the authority in that area for your own brand. And it will resonate with people. And I think also, knowing that your content isn't made for everyone, right? So it's either going to repel people or it's going to attract people, and being okay with that. So like, and you get criticism from people like, oh, why'd you post that? And blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you're not my ideal person. So that's why you don't think it's relevant. But
Yeah.
my ideal person is like eating up every word.
Yep. Yeah, the authority piece there is strong because, a potential patient looking to get implants, for instance, they look around, they see you like, talking about it over and over and like, man, other people are like learning from her. Obviously, I want to go to her because she's teaching other people, about it. So, the authority
Right.
play is such a big thing with social media content. Well, Dr. Yazdu, I'm going to wrap.
There's room for everyone.
There is, and
Perfect.
that's another good point. In fact, 2 weeks ago, somebody said, "Well, it's too late for me to start social media posting because everybody's already doing it. It's already saturated." And I'm like, "No, this is thing's just getting going." So I'm glad you brought that up. That's an interesting point. Don't think that it's too late, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, Dr. Yazdan, I'm going to wrap it up. This was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on your business, your journey, social media, and everything in between. Just how you approach everything, I think, is amazing. I think to my audience, I think if you look at Dr. Yazdan and how she thinks beyond kind of just procedures and really focus on the prevention, the education, the long-term outcomes, the social media. I mean, she's doing a lot of things right, but it did take her some time to learn this. And, this is something that, as she mentioned, you can learn right now. There are courses out there. There are people that can, get you accelerated much faster. So don't think that it's too late. Don't think you can't do it. There are always ways to do this, and it's a great way to promote your practice. For everyone else listening, if you're not a dentist, I don't know why you're listening, but if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and share it with another practice owner who's trying to level up, not just clinically, but also, socially. And as always, this is the No BS Dental Growth Podcast, where we talk about what actually works. Dr. Yazdan, thanks so much for your time. I hope we can have you back in a few months and just get an update on what's working.
Thank you. Would love to. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Awesome. All right. We'll see everybody next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Dental Marketing Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, www.kickstartdental.com/podcast, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you are ready to grow your practice, then you might want to schedule a free strategy session with us. Just go to kickstartdental.com and click the free strategy session button and give us 15 minutes of your time to change your practice forever. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And thanks for listening to the Dental Marketing Podcast by Kickstart Dental Marketing, where dentists go to win online.